Hi everyone, my name is Safwan and welcome to my channel. Today I'll be showing you how to convert your Word document into a PDF using Logic App and the OneDrive connector, so stay tuned. So this is my Logic App that I just created. It doesn't have anything, so let's go ahead and click on Edit to start our conversion. Because I want to do a manual run, I'll pick the HTTP request response template, which would add in my request and response connectors. So I can just go ahead and save that and start adding my OneDrive for Business connector. So once you're in the Add an Action view, you can search for OneDrive for Business. Because I've recently used it, it's showing up here. But basically, when you actually click here, it should ask you, if you're using it for the first time, it should ask you to log into your organization account. So go ahead and do that. And once you've signed in, you should see all these actions available for you. So because we want to convert a Word document into PDF, we'll pick the convert file connector. And over here, you have the option to actually define where your file will be. So in this case, I have already added a sample document in my OneDrive folder. So let's jump and take a look at what that is. So this is my OneDrive root folder, and this is a very simple document which just contains sample text. Now there is limitations on how big the files can be for conversion. So if you go to their Microsoft site for OneDrive connectors, you'll see that for conversion, for creation, it says it can't create over 50 megabytes of file, and I reckon for conversion it's going to be the same. So keeping that in mind, let's go back to our converter, our Logic app, and we can see that we will be able to convert this file here. There are actually a couple of other options you have when converting a file. I really haven't used all these three other options, but if you have used them, if you do have a use case for them, please let me know in the comments below. I'm very keen to find out. After we have converted the file, we want to actually view it, so we'll add in another connector, which is again in the OneDrive for Business, and we'll just say create file connector. We'll put it in our root folder, so there, and pick that. The file name, we'll take it from the convert file connector, and also the contents, we'll take it from the convert file connector. Let's go ahead, save this, and run. Took a few seconds for the run to complete. You can see that it has converted and created the file successfully. If we go back to our OneDrive, you can see that this new PDF just popped up. So let's see if we can open it, and we can. So there you go. So that's the simplest way to convert a Word document into PDF. Okay, so let's go ahead and see how to actually take a stream data in the payload and actually convert it into a PDF. So for the convert file connector to work, your document needs to exist on OneDrive. So the first thing we need to do then is to retrieve our payload and then create a file within OneDrive. So let's go ahead and do that. Go to Add an Action, OneDrive for Business, and then create file. So over here, we can see that we need to pass in a content. Now, from experience, I know that the way OneDrive requires the file content is different to what we might expect. So it's basically expecting a particular structure in the payload for this file content parameter. Instead of figuring out what that is, the easiest thing I can think of is to retrieve my existing Word document on my OneDrive and then basically just create a copy of that and look at the payload. So I'll go and add in another action that will get the content of my file, and I'll pick my sample file that I have on OneDrive, and then I will go to my create file connector. I'll just pick the root, that's where I want to save it. So for the file name, we'll just say convert to.docx, and then for the content, we'll just grab the file content from the previous connector, and let's go ahead run this. So we can see that that ran successfully. So I'm expecting a convert to.x file and also a PDF file in my OneDrive. Oh yes, so I haven't actually converted this file. I've reconverted the first file again. That's okay. Now let's open this up, make sure everything works. Awesome. So let's go back now and let's look at the way the file content was passed. So we can see that in the file content, it's basically an object where you have the content type, which is the Word document, and obviously this type is very different from .docx that we know. So that's why I was saying, instead of finding out, the exact structure, let's just run an example payload and we'll copy it from here. So we can see that in the dollar content, we have this base64 version of the document, and this is basically what you will get in the stream in your payload. So now if you want to actually pass streams and be able to create the document and convert into a PDF, all you need to do is make sure your payload looks something like this. So let's copy this and let's go back to a designer. Let's remove the get file content because we don't need this anymore. Let's go up to our HTTP request and let's use a sample payload to create our schema. So we're saying that this is going to be our object for the file content. So what we can probably do is a file content, and then let's wrap this around another object, which is going to be the main payload object. And because this is a file content, we probably also want to have another property called file name. And here we'll say convert3.doc. Okay, so I'm happy with that. So let's go ahead and click done and let us go back to our create file 2. So this is where we'll actually pick our parameters, our data that we get from the payload. So let's click on file name for the file name of the document. The file content, let's click on the file content object. So not these guys, but the file content object. And we'll be saving it to our root directory on OneDrive, so that's okay. And then let's go ahead in the convert file, instead of taking this first document as the file to convert, let's remove this and let's take the ID of the file that we just created, and we're saying that we'll convert it to PDF and we'll create a document on our OneDrive. And also, as we're doing that, let's also go to my response connector and pass in my file content as the return, as the response. Now let's go ahead and save that. So now we can actually go and run this, but instead of running this from here, I prefer to run it from Postman because I can actually call again and again, don't have to type in the payload. So this is going to be a post request. We need to get the URL, so let's jump back to our connector. Let's copy this URL and chuck it in there. For the body, this is going to be a raw JSON, and in the JSON I've put in the content that's expected. So we have the file name, we have the file content, and within the file content we have the huge content type that's required for a Word document, and then the actual base64 content of it. So now if we actually run this and let's wait for the response to see what happens, we can see that we actually did get a document in response. Now we can go to the header and we can see that this is of type PDF, and we can actually see it rendering. So that's amazing. So we know that that worked. Another way we can check is obviously going back to our Logic app. Let's refresh and get the last run, and we can see that the content that we got, so it's going to be in the output. This is what we sent. So we sent our file name, our file content, and then that went across to this create file, which then created this document. So if we go back to our OneDrive, we'll see that we have a convert4, which was created just a few seconds ago, and then that file was basically picked up in our convert file connector using the ID, and that was converted into a PDF content. We use this create file connector to create the PDF on our OneDrive, and we use the response to actually send back our PDF content. Hopefully that was useful. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments below or get in touch with me. Make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and share. Thanks.